Hi everyone. Sorry to interrupt. I'm just saying this for XXI, which is streaming right now. Anyone who happens to be watching, apparently there was a bit of a discrepancy, and the school district is planning to start the hearing at 6 p.m. So if you are watching and wondering why isn't the city council meeting that was announced on our website and the public sphere for 5:30, why isn't it starting? It's because the room is currently empty. But in 20 minutes, we expect to start and have a great discussion with the Rochester City School District. So go grab yourself some dinner and come on back in 20 minutes. Thanks. Sorry for all the delays and mix-ups, etc. Miguel, you want to give some context and we can jump into it?
Yes. First and foremost, thank you everyone for being here tonight. Good evening. This is going to be a budget review for the Rochester City Council, and one of the things that we appreciate about doing this early in our process is it gives us an opportunity to ask some questions and get an understanding of your budget and provide you feedback before the district decides to vote on the budget. We are really appreciative of an opportunity today to ask those questions, to really understand how we as a council can be informed and supportive of RCSD, but also to ensure that as we go through a review and understanding of your budget, we're thinking about how it aligns with the city of Rochester and how we move forward as a community. So with that, Councilmember Gruber, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will just, well, let me start by asking the president to maybe make some introductions of who is here so we can welcome you into City Hall.
Thank you so very much. I'm going to start with an introductory statement, if that's okay with you.
Of course, yeah.
And so, okay, good evening. I'm President Melendez, Budget, Finance and Governance Committee Chair, Councilmember Member Gruber, and members of the City Council. I'm Camille Simmons. I serve as the president of the Rochester City School District Board of Education. And as we get started, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge my board colleagues here. Present with us would be Vice President Malloy, Commissioner Santiago, and virtually we have Commissioner LeBron on Zoom with us this evening. This evening provides an important opportunity to speak directly and transparently about the proposed 2025-26 budget and what it means for the children and families of Rochester. I do wish to acknowledge that budget deliberations are taking place across the nation during a time of federal uncertainty, and although it is a responsible piece to move forward with a plan, we must do so with consideration of potential contingencies. The proposed budget reflects our administration's efforts to present a responsible and student-focused financial plan. It preserves critical academic supports while confronting the hard reality of a $38 million gap. Tough and necessary decisions have been made to eliminate vacant positions, align staffing to enrollment, and protect our classrooms without drawing on reserves. This budget is grounded in the district's strategic plan, which targeted investments in early literacy, graduation pathways, multilingual learner supports, and mental health services. It also ensures continuity as we plan the transition of East High School from its current EPO model. On July 1st, Dr. Eric J. Rosser will begin his tenure as the next superintendent of the Rochester City School District. We are preparing to welcome a proven visionary leader into this role, as it is imperative that we do so with a budget that offers him stability, clarity, and a solid foundation to build upon. And with that, I would like to just take a moment to acknowledge and thank Dr. Demario Strickland for his thoughtful leadership throughout this past year and his commitment to delivering a responsible, student-centered budget. This district's partnership with the City of Rochester is essential to our shared mission of supporting children and families. Our one powerful example is the recent collaboration on the Stop Armed Bus Camera initiative. By working together to implement this program, we are taking meaningful action to deter reckless driving around school buses and strengthen protections for our students. It's a clear reminder that we can achieve what we can achieve when we lead with purpose and a common commitment to public safety and student well-being. This budget reflects the best path we have to maintain services, protect student outcomes, and position our district for long-term success. I urge you to keep the needs of our students at the center of your deliberations in the weeks ahead. We are confident in the paths we've set, and we look forward to continued partnership as we work together to build a brighter future for Rochester's children. Thank you for allowing me to take this moment to read this statement to you.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. And again, sorry for the confusion about time and starting a bit late. Superintendent Strickland, do you have some remarks as well?
Absolutely. Great evening, everyone. President Melendez, Budget, Finance, and Governance Committee Chair Gruber, esteemed members of the Rochester City Council, and members of the public. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Rochester City Schools proposed budget for the 2025-2026 school year. It is an honor to appear before you today as we continue the important work of building a school system that meets the needs of every student, family, and educator in our community. This year's proposed budget reflects our unwavering commitment to academic excellence, equity, and fiscal responsibility. We have aligned our investments with the district's strategic plan and the Board of Education goals, prioritizing early literacy, as already mentioned, improved graduation outcomes through our 9th grade academy model, expanded supports for English language learners and students with disabilities, and a continued focus on social-emotional health through our community schools model. A key focus this year is the thoughtful and well-planned transition of the East High EPO as the agreement sunsets. To ensure continuity and sustained student success, we have established a core transition team that meets monthly. This team includes district and East High School leaders working closely to guide academic and operational decisions. Our collective goal is to preserve East's culture of care and high expectations while ensuring a smooth transition to full district governance. We also recognize the need to right-size the district in light of persistent enrollment declines and increasing operational costs. While we have made targeted reductions in central office and non-instructional staffing, we have done so while preserving direct supports for students and protecting the classroom experience wherever possible. Balancing this budget has required difficult decisions, from eliminating vacant positions, strategically reallocating funds. We have taken deliberate steps to close projected $38 million gap without using the fund balance. This approach ensures we remain focused on the year ahead and building a more financial, sustainable future. As we move forward, I ask you for your partnership, not just in passing this budget, but in championing the needs of our students throughout this city. Together, we can ensure that every child in Rochester has access to the opportunity, support, and education they deserve. Now it's my pleasure to introduce my cabinet, who lead this work tirelessly and serve our students and families. And when I call their name, you just give a little wave. Our Chief of Staff, Lashara Evans, our Acting Chief Financial Officer, Derek Blair, our Chief of Communication and Intergovernmental Affairs, Marisol Ramos Lopez, our General Counsel, Adrian Neal, our Chief of Human Capital, Dr. Christopher Miller, our Chief of Operations, Mr. Jacob Scott, our Chief Technology Officer, Glenn Vanderwater, our Acting Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Vicma Ramos, our Chief of Schools, Brenda Torres Santana, our Chief of Special Education and Diverse Learners, Ms. Kristen Swan, and we also have our State Monitor, Mr. Jaime Alicea, and our Fiscal Consultant, Dr. Mark Potter, and our Deputy Superintendent for Administration and Supports is away, previously obligated time off, and she's not here with us, along with two of our other chiefs of schools. But I definitely want to thank you for your time, your leadership, and continued support of the Rochester City School District, and we look forward to answering your questions and sharing more about the district's budget. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'll also just note that I am joined by Councilmember Mike Patterson, Councilmember Bridget Monroe, Council President Miguel Melendez. Two of our council members, Vice President Harris and Councilmember Lupien, are district staff, and therefore we're not here. And the other folks will get a chance to watch on YouTube, and perhaps provide some questions in writing later. I have a couple of just framing questions, and then I'm going to see which of my colleagues might want to jump in from there. But Superintendent Strickland, you started by talking about right-sizing the district.
Yes,
so I think it's a good place to start. Ultimately, big picture, enrollment in this budget is down about 1,200, and staff is up about 150. I know those are round numbers, but can you help explain how that is right-sizing?
Sure. So the right sizing is occurring in spite of the fact that the district staff has increased. The largest increase was around the paraprofessionals, making sure that students with individual education plans have the correct alignment with their need for additional support within the classroom. So you will see an increase in that area. However, we have taken measures to really begin to reduce teacher on assignment positions so that we get certificated educators back in front of our students, as well as some administrative positions through retirements and attrition. But, you know, unfortunately, the paraprofessional number outweighs the actual reductions that we were able to do. That's why we talk about maintaining the supports for our students.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And then another just framing question, and I'm not sure who the best folks to frame this to, yourself, the board president, or maybe the monitors themselves.
Okay.
But I'm curious what the process is with the monitors at this point and how the actual budget review process works and what the monitor's role is. And I know it's changed a bit over time, so I think it'd just be helpful to clarify for all of us up here.
Well, I'll start off and then I'll gladly pass it over to our state monitor. So it's actually grown even more collaborative than I would say in the past. He's right in my office suite, so we meet all the time. I have to drop in and I say, listen, I need some guidance, some thoughts, some support, and he's able to lend his expertise in that area. But what we started off doing was having each of the departments actually present their needs to myself, the chief financial officer, our chief of staff, our fiscal consultant, and the state monitor. And we really just, you know, laid the foundation. You know, we really cannot have the ads, quite frankly. And, you know, so it was a little easier this year because it was just like, we can't add to this budget. We really need to think about how are we going to start cutting back. Originally, we did have a $38 million gap. We have proposed funding that, you know, hopefully increases with the governor's budget. And we were needing to make some important cuts. But the monitor really helps support to drive some of, you know, my headspace and my decision making with the team. And I would say, and yes, absolutely.
Monitor, I would also like to add that from the board level, the state monitor and fiscal monitor also add a level of strategic planning and direction for us as they are assigned to the district to ensure that we are in compliant with state standards. And so we have a financial plan, we have an academic plan, and we have to monitor those plans to ensure we are, again, in alignment with state standards. So that is the role they play with the board, keeping us abreast as to what budget developments we can expect, what they're looking at, concerns they may have, and then we are able to adjust our understanding in kind.
So before you jump in, Jaime, just a question. So at this point, the proposed budget was approved by both of you? I mean, I know it's not a formal process, but I presume there would not be a budget brought forward to the board and to us without you believing that it passed the sniff test.
Thank you, Chair Gruber. Yes, we have been participating in the budget. One of our jobs is to do an analysis of the budget and submit an analysis to the commissioner. So we have been part of this, and it's based on the governor's executive budget proposal. That's what we have been working on. That proposal was recommending $43 million extra for the district. The budget gap was 38. That's why our recommendation of not going into the fund balance, because there's enough proposed budget executive. We don't know what's going to happen yet based on the New York State budget that has not been approved yet.
Okay. Thank you. With that, I will see which of my colleagues wants to jump in first. President Melendez.
Yes, thank you. So in looking at some of the changes at the school level, I know that there's been a lot of reconfiguring going on
Yes.
One of the questions that I had was related to Andrew Langston Middle School. I did see that, and believe me, I don't know all the logistics of the reconfiguration, although this was one of the schools that was reconfigured, but that there was a 51% reduction in their budget this year. I think it was $5,349,000 and change
Yes.
in 2025, and then it changed down to $2.5 million in 2026,
Yes.
but their enrollment has increased, according to the data I have. So could you maybe explain and walk through what that change is about?
Yep, absolutely. So, Andrew Langston sits at the Jefferson campus, which is in the northwest portion of the city. And what we are finding is that we do not have the enrollment that we would need at that school to be financially sound. So the proposal was actually to move or relocate Andrew Langston to the Douglas campus and actually close the Douglas campus, and that school would be renamed Andrew Langston, a school in the Northeast Zone. It's because it's brand new. You don't want to open a Betts code and then close the Betts code. That's just, they frown upon that. But Douglas, which is a comprehensive school of improvement, could be possibly on the verge of receivership because of low academic performance. Through different reasons and rationale, we were unable to get that closure, but we did need to make sure that there was still a co-location so that we can actively carry out our facilities modernization project, where Jefferson will serve as swing space as it was already proposed to do so. So we needed to move that out to make space for Wilson High School. And in that process, we've had to begin reducing some of the numbers at the two middle schools that are gonna, in a sense, co-locate, but trying to make it so that they're all from the Northeast for the most part, going to that school and sharing students and staff so that we don't have the different sides of the city issues at that campus. So as a result, numbers have decreased, staff decreased, and we're making it so that we have like almost two schools in one school, if you will. I hope I explained
So
that
essentially combining schools, lowering the overall overhead
Correct.
costs for the district.
and trying
bringing
to
resources
reduce any of the issues that could persist with mixing, bringing students from the west side to the east side, but also being fiscally responsible and trying to make sure our students have certificated teachers in front of them, in particular at the middle school level.
Great, thank you for that answer. So I want to go down a line of questioning pertaining to transparency in the budget. I'm very accustomed to navigating the city budget. I know where to look. I know how to find intricate details. And one of the challenges I had in reviewing this budget was really around how you navigate and find the answers to questions. So I'm going to give some examples. So one of the things in the city charter that's required is that there's a section of the city charter that addresses the annual budget estimates, and it requires that the reasons for proposed increases or decreases in any of the items compared to the corresponding appropriation for the current fiscal period be stated in the proposed budget. And there are very few areas where this budget document details the reasoning for variances. And I think what I would like to see is more narrative around large changes in appropriations and transfers between units. And specifically, the reasons for proposed increases or decreases of at least 25,000 or 25% in any items of the proposed estimate compared with the corresponding appropriation for the current fiscal period. Those are the kinds of things that I think we as a community want to have a better understanding.
Yes.
So can you speak to how someone could pick up the RCSD budget book and really see the variance year over year?
Yeah. So I'm going to start off, and then I will pass it over to the Chief Financial Officer. There was a big move to make sure that our systems were aligned with the state comptroller's systems. And in that process, we've begun to provide the correct codes to, for instance, security officers. They were actually, or excuse me, our SSOs, they were actually coded as instructional individuals. So what our budget team did was actually work to make sure that those positions were realigned appropriately and then actually moved to the correct object code in the budget. And a lot of that actually takes place in this budget. What we did say that we would be doing is in the introduction really calling out some of those pieces so that people are understanding of what actually took place. There is some not apples to apples, however, there's some realignments that did in fact happen. And with that being said, I just will pass it along.
Yeah, before you answer, sir, just really quickly, I think what I want to make sure is understood, though, is that the city charter requires that the reasons for the proposed changes is shown in the budget, and it's hard to find that. So,
Understood.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for this opportunity to be with you tonight. Reasons for changes are not actually in our budget book in detail. We do provide information on the prior year and the change amount. This budget has been a couple of years in the making. We know that we need to change our book. Our book is a little bit narrative. It needs to be a little bit more specific. This year with our Oracle project, there's been a lot of challenges with data conversion, with recodification, and we didn't have the needed time to invest in putting in the wanted updates for the books. So we do have some suggested changes that we'll be implementing next year. I could give you kind of a rundown of what we did codification-wise to kind of give you the scope. We went through all of our funds, all of our departments, all of our function codes, object codes, all of our program codes and project codes to ensure they line up with ST3 SAM's reporting. We found a lot of data problems. We have a very old PeopleSoft system that has been utilized over 20 years, different administrations, and each administration would have their thoughts, and our codification has changed over the years and kind of got out of alignment. We went through, and all of our funds now align with ST3 reporting. We went from hundreds and hundreds of our departments and consolidated them into actual working cost centers. We went through all of our functions, and we found hundreds of functions that have been used by the district that aren't properly aligned with the New York State Chart of Accounts. We removed all the old functions and converted them to the actual ST3 functions. Same thing with our object codes. Object codes are expenditure codes, and those expenditure codes, we've been utilizing them for our commodity codes, which is kind of what was happening is we were creating new object codes for every commodity that we need to purchase, which ultimately made it so we had thousands of object codes, and there are not 1,000 object codes in the New York State Comptroller's Chart of Accounts. We limited it to the actual object codes, same thing with our program codes. So we've really been focused on the numbers. The book, I know there's a lot of narrative, there's a lot of things that we need to explain to the public, to our board members, and there are a lot of things that we need to update in the book to make sure that everybody understands what's going on, but we've been really focused on actually transforming the district into a viable financial software system that will properly reflect the New York State Comptroller Chart of Accounts. And that's really where we've been focused. The budget book narrative information, we've been talking, in December we gave all of our chiefs information on their FTEs, information on their operating budgets. That happened in December, and we've been working with the chiefs along with our budget department on making sure that they have the proper appropriations for anticipated expenditures, and that's been happening within the departments, within the schools for TAPU funds, and the actual narrative that should be in the book, I agree, isn't quite there yet, but it is on our roadmap.
Very well. So I'm going to move along. And
President, can I just add one thing to that?
Sure. Yeah, sorry.
I would just say that it's almost not there at all. I mean, there's almost no narrative in this book. Just a quick anecdote. I teach local government to students at the U of R, and every year I have them look at the city's budget book and ask them to do an exercise to try to understand what was cut from one year to another. And they get it intuitively because it's written there in our budget book. I don't know how any parent how your customers, the parents of the district, could ever look at this book and have any sense as to what is changing. I really just don't know. I mean, fortunately, I think we have an understanding because we've been doing this long enough with you all, but I don't know how a parent could be expected to take this book, which is supposed to be transparently explaining how money is spent, and have any sense of what's changed from one year to the next. They see the number of dollars that changed. They see the percentage, but there's literally no narrative in here for huge sections at a time. And I just don't really know how we're expected to know what's what.
So definitely understand where you're coming from. Just an FYI, originally we were asked not to change any of the features of this book versus last year. If you look last year, you'll see something extremely similar. However, we now have a new president, a new vice president, working with them to actually determine how that structure looks in the future, along with the narrative. I definitely understand where you're coming from and very much noted and heard. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And I was going to say something similar, that, in my mind, everything is about the parent picking up the paper and looking at it and understanding it. And I know that it's a process to get there. I do want to ask some questions along the same lines in terms of year over year big funding changes. So page 110 of the budget, at least the version that I have, I'm not sure how much the book has changed since we received our hard copies, but this is around the central data processing. There was a increase of over $4 million, roughly 50% of what was proposed in the previous budget. And could you explain the significant jump in increase for central data processing?
Yes, the increase in central data processing is actually the Oracle project for continued maintenance. So that is the line that it lives, and that's in order for us to continue to keep up the system.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Similarly, around security costs, and this might have been what you just were describing, Superintendent, that there was some reallocations of titles,
Yes.
if you will. But we did notice that there was a jump from 3.2 million to 9.4. Is that strictly the title changes?
Yes, so previously our SSOs, our security officers, were improperly coded to a teaching line. So we updated that, so it does seem that there's an increase, but it's really just a transfer.
Great, thank you. Page 140, psych services are up 5 million, which I know that in this community we're having large conversations around mental health, and I appreciate seeing that allocation change. I do want to ask, though, functionally, what will the impact be on students? What will those resources actually provide to the community?
You're talking about for psychologists? So generally, psychologists are a big part of the annual reviews of our individual education plans. They also help support with diagnoses for our students. And I just will welcome Chief Swan. If you want to add further context, that would be appreciated.
So similar to what Chief Blair had noted, some is the correction of titles, but as Superintendent Strickland noted, the psychologists provide mandated services, evaluations for our students with disabilities, all the way for students who are in preschool to the age of 22, as well as serve as mandated members on our Committee on Special Education.
Great, thank you. In the interest of transparency as well, one of the things that we love to see as council members in the city budget is really an understanding of the salary ranges by title in the budget book. And I noticed, I looked at page 218, 219, there's an insert here, it looks like it's from a website that has the names of individual staff members that they are employed by RCSD and their total pay, but there's not a lot of details about where these staff members are situated, and it doesn't show really, it's actually an external source, right? It's not it looks like it's not an internal document of some kind. So just wondering around that, why is there not salary ranges, titles, positions in the budget reflected so that the community can know how we're spending these dollars in what departments?
Again, I would state that this is how it has been in the past. However, what I'm doing also is diligently taking down your notes so that we actually move forward together in providing that transparency, which is what I've been all about. Just making sure that we're being extremely transparent and helpful for the public.
Thank you. I'll yield the floor for now. I'm sure I'll have additional questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Monroe or Patterson, either of you?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So I suppose I'll go and ask a question about the first item. I was very excited and thankful when the school board did pass the bus patrol program. However, at this point, the city school district has not signed off on the contract. I understand that it was submitted close to 4 weeks ago now, and I just really want to make sure that we have that buffer we need to have the educational component for the drivers so that we can roll this out in September.
Thank you. I will just make sure that my council has noted that to find out where we are in the process.
Okay, thank you. As we're talking about schools moving to different places, for instance, at Jefferson, I'm taking a look specifically on schools in the Northwest District. So what high schools do we have left? I mean, we have Edison Tech. Marshall has a middle school in it now. I know at some point it had been Swing Space. At some point it had been All City High.
No, right now it's Edison Tech and then All City High. Now Marshall is going to actually serve as Swing Space for Padilla at the Franklin campus for facilities modernization as well. So Thurgood Marshall is actually a middle school. That's in Charlotte. And Andrew Langston is currently at the Jefferson campus, but that's the school being moved out in order to actually have space for Wilson Magnet to go into that space as Swing Space.
Okay, so what will be at Charlotte High?
Charlotte will continue to be Thurgood Marshall Middle School.
Okay.
Yes.
And the middle school now, is that 7th and 8th grade or 6th, 7, and 8?
That's 7th and 8th grade.
7 and 8, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so Edison and then Marshall So for high schools,
Mhm.
which ones do we have left in the Northwest then?
So it's Edison Career and Technology High School, and we have All City High School, which is a program.
Right.
However, just an FYI, our high schools are all in a sense citywide, so individuals, request to go to specific schools, according to their wants, their needs.
Right. Then how about elementary schools? We have 7,
Yeah.
Virgil Grissom.
Okay, so we can actually provide you a map if you would like.
That would be great.
Yes, absolutely, no problem with that.
Because certainly the Northwest, as I'm sure you all are aware, we have a lot of new Americans, and so
Yes.
we're the section of the city that's been having serious growth in children. And obviously that's a population that the school district could do very well with. And particularly elementary schools. In here you're talking about moving toward more community-based schools models. And so as we look at that for elementary schools, I think it's pretty critical to make sure then that there are elementary schools that are within walking distance or a very short bus ride away from where the children reside.
Absolutely, thank you.
Sorry, I'm just looking through my questions
No
here.
I can circle back to you too if you want to take.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, one of them I do have. So I'm an RCSD school parent. My 3 children all went through RCSD from age 4 all the way through graduation.
Yes.
And one of the things that was really lacking were PTAs. So, PTOs are a very different animal than a PTA.
Yes.
And I always felt that the school district was really missing out by not having the PTA, as they have their own trainings. They offer, I think, more empowerment for the parents. And there's a standardization there as far as what your bylaws are, how you do your audits, how you keep your books, whereas a PTO is something that each one creates itself and it's different. So I was wondering where we're at with the number of schools with PTOs and PTAs.
So I will say that we are moving towards making sure that every school has a viable parent organization, whether it be a PTA or a PTO. They're at different stages in the game, but we definitely we have a Christmas tree chart where we actually ensure that schools are actually diligently meeting, or we have our parent organizations within the schools that are actually meeting to help, do fundraising for the schools, to, have a presence within the school communities. And that's really big in like building back up since the COVID-19 pandemic. But we'll definitely provide you again what schools have the active organizations, and I have my chief of staff writing that down just because it's easier just to show you, because I do know that that is the case.
That would be wonderful.
Absolutely.
In my experience with the PTO piece, oftentimes that is led more from the administration side within the school and tends to be very heavy on fundraising.
Yes.
Whereas a PTA, you're looking at your education, you have the ability to go to Albany, keep track of what's happening at the state level, and also lobby. And PTAs can have themselves more organized toward parent education events, things of that nature. Because one of the things that PTAs do is they look at the district overall too, so
Absolutely.
that you don't want to be a school that, for whatever reason is able to fundraise so much money that then you're really kind of, it's not quite right for the other schools who don't have the funding. So
Yes.
I just think there's a lot more complexity there that
Sure.
the PTA can offer, especially with their regional model.
And I just want to add additional context. Our Office of Parent Engagement, led by Director Holloman and Executive Director Kelly Briggs, they actually subscribe to Dr. Karen Mapp's model for how to involve or engage not just involve parents in the school communities. So I definitely know that they have begun to have that focus. And honestly, the funding for Title I, you need to actively try to engage families in the school community, not just involve them in the school community. So I definitely am aware of what you're talking about, and we want to continue to lift up that our parents are true partners in this decision making, and they're not doing things just like fundraising. They are being advocates for their children. They're learning about content. They're hoping their kids read, and doing things like lobbying. I think those are great salient points. We're not there. We want to get there. That would be a perfect place to be.
Sure, especially elementary and pre-K levels where you get
Absolutely.
parents when they're maybe just starting in on the system.
Yes.
Because I found that our, by and large, parents want to be involved.
Yes. Absolutely.
And in the text that I was reading here, you're talking about having equal and equitable allocation of resources across all schools. And I'm asking what that looks like in particular to when we had former Superintendent Jean-Claude Brizard. He had been looking at making it an equal, equitable allocation across resources, but it was being done in such a way that they were, starting to dismantle the SOTA program because, they have music teachers and other things there that other schools don't have.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering what that allocation difference means for the different schools.
So the different allocations could mean additional special education teachers. It can mean additional paraprofessionals. It can mean additional ESL teachers for our newly arrived Americans. And in addition, it could mean it's actually more operational dollars to operate at the schools. And there's a sort of a formula that we are using for TAPU, and I can pass that over to Chief Blair to talk about that.
Thank you.
Yes, we have a specific formula based on enrollment that gives and allocates enrollment, L's, and SPED. That TAPU is what we call it, is just a formula that gives them specific amounts of money to cover their school, operationally, budget-wise.
And I don't know how you're rolling it out, but I think the time that had been one of the difficulties was because certain areas, certain schools had more of an expense on their TAPU, and so then they were, some were scrambling to make sure that they got the students who had a higher per pupil rate because of different needs that they have. And I don't know if that's how it's working.
Yeah, we did add the specific needs of the schools in the formula. So if they have more L's, they would get more funding. Same with special ed.
I'm sorry, if they had more.
English language learners, I apologize.
Okay, thank you. I'm assuming that none of the state funding is something that's a federal pass-through. So state funding looks like something that hopefully we can count on.
I mean, yes, absolutely. So we're actually planning for those different situations. As of now, we don't know what's going to happen. It's an ever-changing situation with our federal government, and we have to begin. We've already begun to start making contingency plans. What do we get rid of in the event that we don't have the $60 million in federal funding come to us? Like, what are we going to do? We're going to have to consolidate programs, think about, our neediest learners, unfortunately, our English language learners, our students with disabilities, consider using portions of the fund balance, but we would much rather actually see, some further reductions with staffing, in particular at the central office level. Because we don't want to cut those services to the students. But we are planning for those contingencies. We don't know what the year after will look like in terms of the federal government. And you'd see we're having delays with the state budget this year. So everyone is feeling in limbo, you know, and it's just not a good feeling. But we are making some concessions or some contingency plans for in case that were to happen.
And Chair Gruber, this will be my last question before we can move along to Councilmember Patterson. So I was just wondering, oh, and now I don't see it on my paper. Oh, well, I guess the next piece just takes me to food service as far as the quality of food and how progress has been made as far as what you can do, and also then the waste, how much waste we're having.
Yeah, food service is always something. Like, I go into schools all the time and I hit up the cafeteria and the kids tell me, hey, this food stinks. Well, you know, we're following some of the regulations of the U.S. Department, you know, which we get, you know, funding for. But I will have Chief Scott come in. He can talk about some of those different things that we've done to try to engage our students into giving them a variety and a choice with food in efforts to increase the amount of students that use the program as well as decrease the amount of waste.
Yes. Hello. Yes. Good evening. Thank you, Superintendent Strickland, Dr. Strickland. One of the things that we've done, we've actually collaborated with the city as well in trying to do more taste testing with the R centers. As Dr. Strickland mentioned, I mean, we are kind of with the federal regulations and things of that nature, we do try to push the envelope as much as we can, but we do try our best to get as much feedback from our students in changing the menu and listening to both students and parents as well on kind of what to serve and what not to serve. So like one of the things that we were planning on doing even this summer is trying to have some tastings, especially around summer food, where we can get students to really provide some true feedback. Not to say that we don't get it during the school year, but we find that students are a little bit more looser and more willing to really tell us what they feel about the meals. So feedback is one of our main pieces. As far as waste, if I can get that information to you, so it's very accurate, but I can get that information to you as well. But we are always open to just ideas around how we can do better when it comes to food and nutrition.
And I will have this as my last comment with the food, is I do hear that heated food is heated in the plastic wrap that's around the item, and I think that's a well-documented health concern as far as plastics and microwaves and the way it leaches into the food. Thank you.
Councilmember Patterson?
Councilmember Monroe, you had to mention food, huh? All right. Well, I'm surely not going to start there. Let me start by commending you, Interim Superintendent, Chief of Staff Evans, President Simmons, Vice President Malloy. A couple of years back, I started asking about science of reading, what's going on with science of reading. I was told, first time I was told, I don't know what we're doing with it. Then I got, oh, yep, we're doing it. And now I literally see in the interim superintendent's letter a section on the science of reading. And I just want to commend you guys. You know, I get it. Maybe before you kind of like, we're doing it. We don't know if we're doing it. We don't know what we're doing. To, oh yeah, no, we're doing it. It's a district policy. We take it seriously. Everybody gets it everywhere. I just want to commend you for that, because that's a big deal. So just wanted to thank you for that. So, and there's nothing too heavy or hard in here that I have. I direct you to page 9. My question is about fund balance. So last year you used $8 million in fund balance. This year you're proposing to use 16. How much do you have remaining in fund balance?
So, Councilman Patterson, the update, that was actually in order for us to submit a balanced budget. Just to go over that process really quick, originally I wanted to reduce the number of vacancies in the budget, only to realize some of these are positions that are mandated that are needed. So in order to meet the financial plan expectations, we had to ensure that we submitted a balanced budget. That caused us to actually use 16 million in fund balance. But again, one of the commitments was that we are not using fund balance and that we need to make sure that we have cuts. That was what this Board of Education is expecting. That's what we should be doing, especially in light of the in light of what's happening federally. So we were able to actually get down or make the reduction of 16 million in cuts, and we're back as to using no fund balance.
Oh.
So that's as of right now.
So in the draft budget, you're using 16 million in fund balance, but in your final budget, you anticipate using no fund balance.
So I'm not sure if you have the latest copy.
Probably not.
Okay. We'll definitely make sure you get that, but the latest version
the one from
shows
March 21.
Yep.
Yes.
This is the most updated one?
March 21, yeah.
So during budget deliberations and budget work, we've made changes, and as Mr. Gruber was talking, we did have a $16 million budget appropriation from fund balance in the book that you currently have. We've gotten that down to nothing, and we went from 150 positions add to 16. So we reduced. We really worked hard on reducing our central office staff, and we found a lot of efficiencies and reduced our FTEs down to only adding 16 this year. So you do need an updated book.
So what we have, sorry, Councilman Patterson, I just want to make sure I understand. I'm going to turn it back over to you. What we have is what the first submission.
Correct.
And now there's been some changes. It has not yet gone to the school board for a formal vote, but there is a new book to look at, or it's just it's something online for us to be able to examine?
Yep, it's on the Rochester City School District website under the departments, under budget. You'll find the new book.
Okay.
We update it because it's not adopted yet.
Yeah.
So we're still making the changes, thinking and taking a lot of your advice into consideration. So want to keep that in mind.
Well, what you're telling us is that it's a working document and you're still working. So I mean,
it's a draft.
If there's no, that's the
Yes,
point.
sir.
It's a draft, so
Yes,
the numbers
sir.
change. That's why we asked. So if you could, and if you can send it over in writing or however you
Absolutely.
can, just let us know what you have remaining in fund balance. Even though you're not using it, it'd still be nice to know how much you've got, because that was a huge problem we had a couple of years ago. Had a whole lot of problems.
Yeah.
with
Well,
this one
we
basically.
we have $285 million in fund balance.
That's a nice number.
Yes.
Thank you.
And it's going to be necessary. Again, thinking about the federal landscape, we want to make sure we protect that
Okay.
at all costs.
Okay.
And you can find our financials on the Rochester City School District website as well.
Okay. No problem. General question, and then I'm done.
Sure.
Tell me about reading.
Absolutely. So I'm going to start off, and then Dr. Ramos, who's been amazing and came back from retirement to help support this important endeavor, important initiative, she can fill in any spaces. So at the end of last year, I was the Deputy Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, and teaching and learning is at the forefront of my heart. Like, I'm a teacher at heart. I love instruction. That's what I do. We trained our K through 2 teachers in a new foundation program called Amplify. Amplify is based in the science of reading. It's the curriculum that we are using for all of our foundational classrooms throughout the district, non-negotiable as well. We did that because we found that our reading program, My View, My Vision, actually had some gaps in which those procedures, those progressions were not being taught sequentially, which is why perhaps some of our students, were not reading by third grade. They weren't getting the foundational skills as they needed to. We did that training for the last, I believe it was the half day in May, and now we need to continue to do maintenance to make sure that new teachers are up to date with ensuring they get that training. We also continue to do maintenance on letters, which is language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling, also foundational with the science of reading. And we continue to do that. We're adopting a new curriculum. Actually, it's a mandate from the State Education Department that we align our resources with the science of reading. That's what they want to ensure that we do, and we can do that. We continue to ensure that we're looking at how are we going to make the best decisions for our students. Dr. Ramos, tell me how I did.
Very well. There are 5 different points that we truly have concentrated this year. We started with really looking at analysis of a viable and reliable curriculum. And our science of reading, we know that we can provide our staff with many things, but if we're not there to help them implement it and continue the journey and be checking and using formative assessments, and then we're going to miss the mark. So we have been doing that in a quarterly basis. We have reading teachers working directly with teachers inside classrooms as well as supporting our students. Those are flex groups. They're changing all the time. We are monitoring those pieces. We are using our instructional coaches as well to be able to make sure that they understand the science of reading. We've put our staff through training, our administrators through training, because we need to be able to see what is going on and to be able to identify best practices. In addition to those pieces of reading, we have also extended that those students that haven't met the mark by the end of June will be invited to a program where we will continue to ensure that our grades 1 through 2 and 2 through 3 are reading on grade level and we're catching them up. And most importantly, we have now added grade 3 to the reading director, executive director, because we understand that in order to have continuance of programming, we're still catching up with pieces that were not in place. We are truly looking at all our implementation triggers. We're looking at making sure that our formative assessments are aligned with the science of reading, and we are definitely starting to see an impact of those students growing versus the ones that did not have it in prior years.
Okay. And the Amplify program is a new program that you're implementing, and when did that start again?
We started the implementation this year in September.
Okay.
But the training happened at the end of last year. It started at the end of last year.
And we've continued to train.
Okay, wonderful. I also have to sing your praises about another one of your programs that's in my district. Boys Academy at number 9.
Oh, absolutely.
I had a chance last summer to go and see them on the Brockport campus.
Yep.
Dr. Green and his team are amazing. Any council member, board members, if you haven't been out to Brockport to see what they're doing with those kids all summer long, 4 days a week, 5 days a week, first thing in the morning to late in the afternoon, it is amazing. I can honestly, from what I've seen of all of the wonderful, and everybody beats the school district up about a bunch of stuff, and some of the stuff you need to be beat up about. But this ain't one of those things you need to be beat up about. This is one of the things you need to be praised for.
Thank you.
Boys Academy is amazing. Those young kids are engaged the entire full day. So, are you fully funding them? Is Dr. Green getting everything he needs for my kids in the Northeast?
So just to give you my background, first I used to be the school chief of school number 9.
Okay.
So, and actually I started my teaching career teaching all boys in Brooklyn.
Okay.
So that program, the minute I, went into school number 9, Dr. Green and Principal Sharon Jackson, they're doing a phenomenal job with those young men. Myself and the president, we went to their induction, their coat ceremony.
I was sitting behind you.
Yep, fantastic. Last summer I did too. Go and get greeted. We want to achieve to be.
Right.
That's fantastic, and we will do whatever it takes to continue to make sure that we support our program. And I've actually charged Dr. Green with saying, have conversations with SUNY Brockport. Let's get our students the opportunity to actually stay on the campus for like a portion of that summertime so that they really get this immersive experience of what it is to be on a college campus, and do the food and sleep overnight, in the dorms and things of that nature. So I just looked at our summer school list for potentials, and Boys Academy is on there with Dr. Green leading it.
All right, wonderful. Man, it'd be great if there was somebody like, if we could get one of the regents in the area to see if he could come in and help out with something like that. I'm just saying, hypothetically speaking, since he's sitting right there.
Yeah, we'll give him the address to show up. Absolutely.
All right, well, look, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate the work that you guys are doing. Like I said, normally we're sitting up here and we're just beating you guys up. I also really want to thank you for the realignment that you're doing with the budget book. I am the guy who's got every year of budget books that you guys have put out for the whole time that I've been on council in my office. And normally I do exactly what, Chair Gruber says. I literally grab all of your budget books. I spread them out on the table and I go across a 10-year span or longer because they were so consistent year over year that we could just track it real easy. After hearing your explanation for why you're condensing things, I get it. It makes it a little harder to see to Dr. Gruber's point,
yes,
and to President Melendez's point. It does impact the transparency to just be able to pick it up and figure out what's going on. But if the long-term goal, and it sounds like the long-term goal, is to make this more consistent and more transparent with what New York State demands of school districts, it's very hard to be opposed to the Rochester City School District aligning itself with state standards.
Absolutely, and like we said, the largest goal was to ensure that everything is in alignment with the chart of accounts, and that wasn't the case. So we had to spend a lot of time and energy, and it's even amazing that we even have this right now because of the amount of work that has been done to make sure those are in alignment with the way it should be. But I take copious notes. My team knows that I'm very much like that, and I've listened to every single point, and I even took an opportunity to whisper to President Simmons, and I said, I have all of their, these are the things that they want to do. If you know me and we're getting to know each other, I'm all about transparency. There's nothing to hide. There's nothing to hide, and I want parents to be able to pick up a book and say, this is what it is. This is what it's not. That's how it should be. And we'll get there, we'll get there as a district.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Yep, I'm gonna jump in with some questions. I really, it's a strange role for me to play where I have to temper Mike's positivity with some negativity myself. But I will just say, as much as that line of thinking makes sense, all this book needs is a page of narrative in every section to explain the swings one direction or another. That can happen in addition to being in compliance with state auditing practices. Yep. I wanted to open up a section of questions for me that are particularly pertaining to the ridiculousness happening at the federal level right now, and how the district is in fact preparing for this. So you mentioned, Dr. Strickland, around $60 million in federal funds. Is that $60 million the Title I money to RCSD?
Yes, $55 million in federal funds.
That's Title I, or that's also a bunch of different, because I'm sure school lunch is also technically a federal fund,
I mean,
right?
so generally, so we do know that there could be potential cuts to school lunch. We do know that, you know, a lot, the pre-K funds come from the federal government, but come through us through state. So we have to be mindful of those things as well. Yeah, 55 million is what we potentially would lose right off the cuff.
What do we get for Title I specifically? Is there a specific number there?
32 million. There is. If you direct your attention to just a moment. Page 27 in the beginning, you see federal. Okay, so where I got the first number is page 27 and 28. You'll see a lot of the Title I through Title IV supports that totaled 55 million. And if you go to page 127, 179, excuse me. Excuse me. 181, my bad. Proposing 33 million for ESSA funds.
So you mentioned before, thank you for that. You mentioned before that you all are building out contingency plans.
Correct.
What is the contingency plan? What happens if those funds go away?
So we're planning for that. We're gonna have to make some tough decisions, possibly with some more school consolidations. Again, cutting non-mandated departments that are not required by Commissioner Regulations 100, Section 100. So that means some of the additional services that we provide, we have to really think twice. We have some programs out there. We're servicing our students, you know, that are English language learners and things of that nature. You know, how do we possibly consolidate into one building so that we're able to maximize the services that they are entitled to, so we don't change, you know, try to change the fidelity of things. But those are just some of the very minimal things, but we still have some continued planning.
I think it's also going to be imperative that we recognize we're going to have to know how to do less with less. And what does that look like? If we were to take any federal dollars that are allocated to our budget or impact our budget on some level, if that money went away, what are we left with and what can we then do? How are we going to partner with other organizations here locally? How are we going to partner with city government? So it's really about working smarter. And again, the mindset is about how do we prepare ourselves to potentially do less with less when we don't know specifically where the less is going to hit, but we know that it very well could. I hope that made sense.
It does, but functionally, from your vantage point as the board president, you are going to vote on a budget that does not show these massive losses from the federal government. You're going to vote on a budget that suggests the funding will be there.
We're going to vote on a budget that suggests that the funding will be there. However, we also, those are the other conversations we're having, which are let's gut this budget and let's plan for plan A, B, or C. So those are conversations that we've had offline, but initially you want to plan for what's in front of you currently.
Got it.
And then take it from there. But you do have to have additional plans.
Okay. Understood. I mean, we're going through a similar process here in City Hall, a little bit different because no one's yet proposing to actually eliminate the Department of, Housing and Urban Development, which would be the equivalent for us, the Department of Education, is being eliminated. So, yes. I'm glad to know there are some contingency plans being built. I will say that becomes a hard place to be transparent, but again, when with what we've been given to read, it would be impossible for us to know that there are those conversations about what happens if this money goes away. So I'll speak next year as an RCSD parent. My kid is still 4, but next year I'll be asking you as a parent, how am I supposed to see this stuff? Because you can't see it in the existing budget book. My other question, and this gets to the president's point about partnerships, I would actually look the other way around, though, knowing that there is a proposal right now to eliminate Head Start. What is the district's ability to pick up additional pre-K seats if Head Start goes away?
Yeah. So that's a great point. We've already started some of those pieces where we've opened up more pre-kindergarten classrooms within our schools. And we've done that because of the certification issues and things of that nature that we were running into some slight issues around. However, we know that early literacy is going to be extremely important no matter what in that critical time that, age 2 years to 4 is extremely critical. So that would be a decision, do we then dip into the fund balance to actually sustain those programs that are very vital to the very well-being of this community and, our students. We already know they come, unfortunately, a little behind where they should be. So I'm pretty sure that that would be a decision that the Board of Education would be in support of in the event that funding goes away. We have to make sure we maintain getting our babies at, year 2, going on 3 years old and having a viable program.
Well, I say this as first of all, in full disclosure, I'm a board member for ABC as a council rep. I'm also a former Head Start teacher for ABC, Hudson Avenue. And I really hope that there is a conversation around fund balance being used. And I would say to Councilmember Patterson's point about the fund balance issue of years ago, a $285 million fund balance is almost the beginning of the alternative problem. That is a lot of money to be sitting on at a time where we have austerity budgets happening around the community and people being scared about not having things or money to spend on things. If Head Start is cut, and it is certainly not, it's looking like that is going to be at least brought to the table at a federal level. I hope that this district is going to have conversations with ABC yesterday about that.
Yeah, and I do want to respond. Of course, this would be a full board conversation, not my an individual conversation, but we recognize the importance of early learning and the fact that we have a school district where children are not reading on grade level holistically. We want to see that, and that starts from the womb, which also is inclusive of course, Head Start and programs such as that. So we have a viable interest in ensuring our students here in the city of Rochester are learning and that they are supported in that learning. So that would, of course, again, be a full board conversation, but trust that we care about the children.
Thank you. Last thing with alarm bells on about the federal government. A lot of this other stuff has been hypotheticals and wonder ifs, but one thing that's not a wonder if is the fact that the federal government has completely eliminated the refugee resettlement process in this country. RIA is, in my opinion, something that makes the RCSD particularly special. I hear about it in the refugee community all the time, that it is a reason why refugees want to come to Rochester. I don't functionally know how you maintain a refugee targeted program when we're going to have 4 years of no refugees entering this country. But I hope and believe there is some way to maintain the essence of RIA, and I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that.
So you're absolutely correct about that funding being, completely vacated. So we were under a corrective action plan for Part 154 regulations, in which we were not, even though we know the quality and the essence of what Rochester International Academy provides its students, that level of comfort to the refugee students and whatnot. But what is actually being handed down regarding the Part 154. Now it's a quality assurance plan, which I'm very grateful for. It's like a downgrade of a CAP. Is that we are leaving our students at the Rochester International Academy there too long. They're in a segregated space away from their general education peers. So we, at the same time, trying to ensure that we are cultivating our arms around some of our most vulnerable learners and population, are at the same time, we need to think of ways on how we are going to cultivate that space in all of our buildings. Like, you should be able to show up to any RCSD school and feel that same sense of love, safety, and comfort, so on and so forth. However, you know, in light of, there's still, that program is still on the books. Like, we still have 100 students that have come this year to the country that will be able to stay at the program. But years down the line, I mean, we know for the next 4 years, it's not going to happen. We're going to have to really think about how do we make sure that all of our schools become these environments for all of our students feeling safe.
Yeah, so RIA is on the books for this up. I mean, I see it in the budget book. RIA will continue to exist as it does for this upcoming school year.
Yes, with students that are eligible to stay at the school, which would be less than a year.
And I guess all I would just add is that I hope that there is opportunities to talk about what that could look like in a transformative way with other organizations, including the city, and how the work and support we put in for New American communities. I mean, I think in particular at the district, obviously RIA is a huge part of it, but so is Oasis. I mean, Oasis does an incredible amount for the New Americans in this community. And if there's a way to look at how to preserve some of these dollars, because God willing, we will be a community that has open arms for New Americans again someday when the federal government allows people to resettle here. And I don't want to have to start these things from scratch. We have a very good functional system right now.
Absolutely.
Any couple more questions for folks? President Melendez?
Yes, thank you. I want to follow the line of thinking around federal changes. You know, in 1986, President Ruth Scott, first black woman president of this council, stood on a policy and said that the city of Rochester is a welcoming place and that we are a sanctuary city. 2017, another President Scott, ironically, doubled down and said we are a sanctuary city and pushed back on the national narrative. Now, my last name's not Scott, but we're standing on business. We're going to stay that way. I do want to ask the question because I know that DEI across the country has been under attack, and specifically educational systems have been receiving correspondence around that issue. And I would like to get an understanding of where we are today and what has the response been, if any, at this point to any threats that have come our way.
Well, we have received the letter, but was advised by New York State that we don't need to sign anything. So that's exactly what I did not sign. That would be against my foundational being, and I will continue to stand up for the rights of all children, in particular black and brown children in this community that we serve, and ensure that we're giving them the best quality education possible. And that includes like just really trying to hire the best individuals that are going to meet the needs of the students, you know, in the classroom, really keeping our efforts to retain and recruit BIPOC staff. It's going to be absolutely necessary to really work with our populations, and you know, I would double down on that all day, definitely. So unless somebody put my hand to the fire. I don't plan on signing anything, but that's all.
Let's touch on that real quick, because we know that there's a lot of transition that's taking place. And I would just liken you to just imagine someone coming to your door, coming in your home to harm your children. What would you do? So when I think of that analogy, I think of the students of the Rochester City School District. And it doesn't matter what origin, what religion, what hue, those are the students that we are serving. So that's the appetite.
Appreciate that, and I'm right there with you. In addition to that, though, as we adults navigate whatever the federal landscape is, whatever the local landscape is, there are kids that hear this and see this. And I appreciate the emphasis on some of the services and mental health services specifically. But I do ponder if there's opportunities for all of us, and this being intergovernment in some way, to have more conversations. I know there's been several town hall-like efforts
Absolutely.
that have happened in the last couple of weeks, unpacking what's happening and how people are feeling. And I encourage, I know that, the district's primary focus is education, so I don't want to lose that in this discussion, but I do think that there might be some opportunity for us locally to collaborate and come up with a plan for how are we going to collectively ensure that the public is at ease as best we can, because we know that these are uncertain times and we can't control everything. And I welcome that collaboration, but Madam President, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you, President Melendez. Yeah, and so one of the things that I want to talk about is there is something coming up, but it has been under planning, and you can't run before the plan happens, that kind of thing. But there will be a conversation in the coming weeks, several weeks or months, like more so June, should I say, so next several weeks. And the objective is to bring community partners together. We need to start talking solutions. I've been to several roundtable discussions, had my own variation of a discussion, and have learned a lot of information. I think those things are necessary and helpful in some cases because you hear different thoughts when you walk into those spaces. What I'm looking for is partnership around solutions. We all kind of know the threats, and so when you go into these rooms, we're talking about the same threats that we recognize are happening. I also recognize that sometimes it's like talking what I refer to as the echo chamber. A lot of the same faces, people who have their pulse on things, how are we reaching the greater community, and how do we become proactive in doing so? So I am entering spaces again where, and I'm obviously a little light on the narrative. I'll kind of talk to you offline about that, and you'll hear more about it once it happens. But there is an opportunity to bring folks together in partnership to talk about what we've been talking about this evening. How do we get that partnership going actively and actually see some kind of benefits? What is the plan? I haven't heard it yet, and I know that's the frustration that is across the nation. I went out to a national school board conference, and I was like, man, I'm waiting to hear the answers, because there's got to be this plan. What is the plan, right? And there wasn't one, and everyone's trying to find it. So I think that here in Rochester, what I do believe is that there's an appetite to come together, and this is the time to seize the day.
Just to further add to that point, I do want you to know that I too have been following these egregious executive orders and things of that nature, wholeheartedly. And the minute something comes down the pike, I immediately get together with my communications team, Marisol Lopez, Ramos Lopez, and we craft something that is going to go out to the staff and the families to ensure that they know that our commitment is really steadfast, and it's going to be that we ensure we provide a quality education to our students. And we did that, right away. We were one of the leaders in all of the big fives where they were mimicking our letter. And we did that right when the Department of Education executive order came out. I had to send something out and saying we are steadfast and committed to ensuring that we protect what needs to happen in our schools. So that is a place, you know, where we are, I would say, leading the charge. Now we just have to, I mean, it's ever changing again, but as President Simmons said, we welcome hearing your thoughts. You know, we have thoughts, and it's going to take the community being together to really make positive thing out of all this negative.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, the landscape changes more than we change our socks, I think. So, and we change them every day, right? So I don't know how we keep up with the ever-changing landscape. So I just want to end on a comment. And first, to Superintendent Strickland, I want to thank you for your service to this community. We greatly appreciate your years of service here in the city of Rochester, to the Rochester City School District, and to our students. So we are grateful for your service. And yes. In addition to that, Madam President, I appreciate the opportunity to address you and the board members that are here, and all of the staff. We thank you for the opportunity to do this ahead of your budget vote so that you can consider our feedback and take our thoughts into consideration. And as we enter our budget season, we'll be thinking about that same spirit and essence of collaboration in these times, and how we may, through the resources that we have in city government, whether it's libraries and rec centers, also advance opportunities for education for our students in the community. Chair Gruber.
Just a request, if you could share with us the letter that you received from the Trump administration in your response. Be nice to have that and give it a look. We probably, I know I missed it, so if you could send it over, that'd be great. Thank you.
If there's no further questions, Councilmember Monroe, do you have any further questions?
Not a question. I just didn't know if we were wrapping up, and I wanted to extend some thanks.
Yeah.
Well, I do. I want to extend thanks. I know there are a lot of trials before the city school district, and you know, keep doing the good work so that kids get educated, and you know, the city and the school district, we're so inextricably linked. So I truly appreciate all the work, dedicated teachers, dedicated administrators. It was so great to hear about this particular budget and how changes have been made with a different coding and things like that, so that old ways of doing things are being cleaned up and standardized into something that the comptroller also recognizes. So I appreciate the work of you, interim superintendent, as well as President Simmons, all the staff, and certainly our other board members. Thank you.
Yeah, in closing, I also want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you for your service, Dr. Strickland. Welcome to President Simmons for your first budget hearing as president before us. I'm very proud to be the parent of a kindergartner next year at RCSD. I look forward to getting to know your operations even more than I currently do in that role. But in this role, I want to close this hearing by just talking again about my plead to not be overly austere. A $285 million fund balance is healthy. I'm glad you're healthy. It's good that you're healthy. It seems to me that the relationship between the district and the city is a very strong and positive one, but there is, quite frankly, there is squabbling at certain levels between the two parties. The bus patrol stuff, we have not, it's taken us so much longer to develop a real plan than Monroe County and the suburban towns. There's no reason for that. Pathways to Peace, it seems every year we come back, and every year there's a little bit of squabbling about how many dollars or what ought we do. We recently took back 2 school buildings that, and then not to mention School 25, the building that we took over after pipes burst, and let us, with a lot of money to spend on this building to make it saleable. We do not need to be in a position where the city and the school district are squabbling over dollars. We need to be using every dollar that we have in this community for the public and spend it together in lockstep. I think everything we've said tonight suggests that we'll get there, but I still think there's work for us to do at the staff level, and I hope we continue to work towards that together. In any way that we can help, we certainly want to be. We're all rooting for the success of the Rochester City School District, and thank you for being here tonight. Any closing remarks from the president or the superintendent?
I just again want to thank City Council for having us this evening. Your feedback is invaluable. It allows us to move forward with a trajectory and some clarity as we adjust certain things. But again, this was a great budget deliberation, being my first one in this particular role. So thank you again for having us this evening.
I just want to publicly thank all of you. It's been an honor to serve in this district. It's a place that I honestly fell in love with. If you know how I started, I was commuting back and forth from Buffalo, and now I live up the street. And I pass this building every day. It'll be bittersweet at the end of the year, but you know, nonetheless, you will always be in my heart, and I am always going to root for RCSD because now it's a part of me. But thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Good night.